Oh, please. Thank you. You're very kind. Hey, I got my son-in-law here. My future lieutenant. All right, good to see you. Hey, you supposed to be over here with your North Texas Turning Point crew. Get over there. Stop sitting with the old people. Go sit with the young people. Okay? Look, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with each and every one of you. I know we got a whole lot of Navy guys here, so I'm just going to say it one time, go Army, beat Navy. Please, God, don't make me eat my words. But you know, the great thing about today is that this is the only college football game that's on today. And the thing is that you get to see young men who are going to fight like hell for 2.5, 3 hours. But when the game is over, they're only on one team. And that's the team of the United States of America. And you're going to be watching this afternoon young men who are going to one day stand up like my nephew will do, my son-in-law will do next year, and take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And they'll be willing to lay down their lives for that oath. And no other college football game, you know that you're watching kids who are going to take an oath to lay down their lives for your country. And so I would just challenge each and every one of you. I don't know what you're doing today. Take time to watch the Army-Navy game. 124th renewal of this game. And I think it's pretty special that they're playing the Army-Navy game in Massachusetts, because that's how we got started in Massachusetts. You know, the interesting thing was on 19 April of 1775, there was no Army. There was no Navy. There was no Marine Corps. There were just people. They were just everyday men and women who wanted something better. They did not want to live under tyranny. And the thing that they understood back then was that as long as they were armed, they could be citizens. If they were disarmed, they would be subjects. Amen. And the British were marching in to Concord, Massachusetts to destroy a weapons and armaments factory. And you know who ended up leading those men at Lexington Green when they fired the shot that was heard around the world? It was a pastor. See, that's why we're here in a church, because it all got started here. In 2 Corinthians 3:17, it says that the Lord is the Spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And so, some people may be upset about what happened, and I don't know how many of y'all know. This was supposed to happen at the VFW, Veteran Foreign Wars Post. Someone calls the VFW and says that, that Alan West and that Andy Hopper, those guys are kind of conservative. I don't think you should have it there. Now, what kind of veterans we got in the United States of America that would just not say click, but they actually said, oh, okay, and they call up and they say, you can't have your event here. See, this is how crazy it's gone from April the 19th of 1775, where everyday common Americans took a battlefield against the strongest, the greatest power that the world has ever known, to today. But we got people that run a VFW that say you cannot have your event here because you're too conservative, because you took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you would bear true faith and allegiance in the same, that you took that obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation, and you said, so help me God. That's in Texas? See, Andy brought up some interesting points, but think about this. You have a legislature in Texas. We couldn't even get a bill passed that would prevent foreign countries, namely China, from buying up land in the state of Texas. We've got a legislature that, for the 4th consecutive legislative session, they've said to you, parents, and someone's grandparents, you don't have the right to decide where your child should be able to go to school. We will do that. 4 straight special sessions, and they could not get school choice passed. And they call themselves Republicans. We have a legislature that, as Andy brought out, are saying to you in Texas that you don't really own your home. We own your home. We're going to give you $12 billion back. We're going to give you some crumbs. But the bottom line is that we're not going to do anything about this thing called property tax. In the state of Texas, you can never own your own home. Think about it. You can pay it off, but is it your home? No. Because if you don't pay the property taxes, they can come in and take it away from you. Yeah. There's no solutions for that whatsoever. And we see what is happening on our border. So we need to have this incredible change in Texas. which I don't think any of us thought we would ever see. March of 2024 is going to be a very important date for the future and the legacy for the state of Texas. Because if we continue to go along in this path in our Texas state legislature, and it was 3 years ago in December when I was the state party chairman, and Dave Phelan came in as the Speaker of the House. And Dave Phelan said that he was going to go to the Democrats and they'd get their support to be Speaker, and he was going to put 13 then that he put in as chairman positions. And I said, you're a political traitor. And the GOP establishment went crazy. They went absolutely nuts. They were throwing themselves on the ground in apoplectic rage and everything like that, frothing at the mouth. And now 3 years later, what do we see? See, leadership is not about going along and getting along. Leadership is about seeing where the issues and the problems are and setting a course and calling people out for not doing what they're supposed to do. You as Republicans, you get out there and you work hard every single election cycle. You bang on doors, you make phone calls, all of these things. And it gets pretty hot in the summer here in Texas. And you have legislative priorities that supposedly people that are going to go down there and adhere to. But then all of a sudden they tell you, you're not smart enough to know this whole thing about governance. You're not smart enough to know that there are some problems in election integrity here. You're not smart enough to understand that unsolicited mail-in ballots are unconstitutional, that they were just a product of Eric Holder and an article that he wrote in Time magazine of April 2020, because as Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. There are only two ways that you're supposed to vote: in person, early voting, or on election day, or an absentee. With this whole thing about unsolicited mail-in ballots, this is wrong. But yet we haven't allowed this to happen here, and we have people that have gone along and gotten along with it. It's time to say no. It's time to stand up. And when you have 51 people that have stepped up and said, we are trying to do something different, now it's on you to get out and support these people that have put themselves out there and made themselves targets to say that we can do better here in the state of Texas. People don't talk about Texas like you think they should talk about Texas. They talk more so about the place where I lived for 10 years after I retired. They talk more so about Florida. Texas is supposed to be the standard bearer of constitutional conservatism. Texas is supposed to be the standard bearer of what the 10th Amendment says. Texas is supposed to be leading the way. That's why you have a lone star that shines brighter for the other 49 stars on the United States flag. Amen. But somehow that brightness is dimming. And it's because we have people that are in elected positions that aren't owning up to what they say they're supposed to be. And Andy came so close last time. And I'm fully behind Andy. Because I want to read you a quote, and I think it kind of puts everything in perspective, especially since this is the month of December. And maybe some of y'all know this quote. Those of y'all that know me, you know that I always walk around with my little 3x5 cards, because, you know, when I was in the Army, they beat you upside the head if you didn't carry 3x5 cards, because you were not smart enough to remember everything that you were told, okay? Well, listen to this quote. These are the times which try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country duty. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. That was written on 19 December 1776 by Thomas Paine. Things were not going well in the early days for the United States of America. And George Washington leaned over to Thomas Paine and said, write something to inspire people, to let them know that this cause is worth it. Thomas Paine wrote a simple pamphlet called The Crisis. This is the famous quote that came from that time. This is the time. Or if you're familiar with the Bible, it's just the same as the exchange between Mordecai and Esther. You were made for a time such as this. There is no other reason why you are here in this time in the United States of America, in this time in Texas, at this time in North Texas, than to make a stand for what is right and what is true. And if you don't do it, then look at that young lady right over here that's saying the Star Spangled Banner for us and say, I'm going to give up your future. That's basically what you're saying if you don't make a stand right now. is that you don't care about her future. My mom and dad grew up in South Georgia. Things weren't good for a black person in South Georgia when they were growing up, but they made a commitment that their son would have it better. And I make a commitment to my son-in-law's son, my grandson, that he will have it better. And Andy is making a commitment to his sons and to each and every one of you that he will have it better. And his mom is sitting here because she made a commitment that Andy would have it better. That's the nature of who we are as Americans. It's not about what we have and what we do in our life. It's about what we pass on to subsequent generations. And if we here in Texas can't pass on something better, then shame on us. And it starts by making sure that we have a legislative body that abides by the Texas State Constitution and the United States Constitution. And if you say that you're a Republican, you abide by the principles and the values and the legislative priorities of the Republican Party of Texas. Not anybody else's self-interest, not anybody else's special interest, but the interests of Texans and the interests of Americans. And that's what Andy Hopper wants to do. You know, George Orwell once had a quote. He said, "A nation sleeps peacefully at night because rough men stand ready to do violence on her behalf." You will never have to worry about what's going on in Austin, Texas, if that's your state house representative. You can sleep peacefully at night, but you can't do that right now. So, filing is next Monday. He's already filed. He's on the ballot. Early voting is going to start, what, third week of February?
February 19th.
February 19th. So what does that tell you? The window, because nobody's going to be paying attention to politics between now and New Year's Day. What is the window for you to get active and to do something? What is the window for you to not be a summer soldier or sunshine patriot? It's basically from 4 January to the 19th of February when the early voting starts. You got to work your you-know-what off in order to get him there. Because why? Because everything is stacked against him. When people can call a VFW post and cancel his event, that's just encouraging them. That's emboldening them. We need to turn that around. And we need to let the folks that don't have a commitment to you know that you cannot call and undermine him. You cannot call and take away his ability to get his message out. And he has to get his message out. 88 votes. You mean to tell me you can't find 88 people, or 89, to make a difference? Okay? I'm sure you can. And Pastor, you know where we find the biggest problem? In churches. I heard you. 25 million Christians, on average, don't vote in a national election cycle like next year. 25 million on average don't vote. So tomorrow when you're sitting in your respective churches, look to your neighbor to the left and to the right and ask them if they're registered to vote. And if they're not registered to vote, make sure they're registered to vote. Don't tell them how to vote, but I would hope they would vote their principles. I would hope they would vote their values. I would hope they would vote along the biblical worldview that they have on Sunday, and they just don't put it up on the shelf Monday through Saturday. Because that's what too many Christians are doing. And now you see what is happening. Oh, they vote for their who? They vote for their friends. You ain't got a friend if they don't believe in the Constitution. If they don't believe in liberty and freedom, they ain't your friend.
That's right.
If they cancel you off of Facebook, then like I said in the Bible, shake the dust off your sandals and keep going, okay? But it is too important a time for us to goof around and play around. And the window of opportunity to make a difference in the state of Texas is from January the 4th, and then it starts 19 February with early voting. And then the first Tuesday in March is it. That's when your team will be selected for next November. After that first Tuesday, you don't have to say so. So get out, fight like you know what for this man. Because it's not easy to put your name out there. And let me close and tell you some of the things that I had to go through. My wife and I've had my social security number and her employment identification number put on mail pieces and sent out. I think y'all remember, I rode motorcycles for like 30-something years. I didn't have an accident on a motorcycle until I stepped up and ran for state party chairman. And unfortunately, my wife never been arrested in life. She got arrested for drinking water and drinking lemonade. And my 3-month-old grandson, his son, was left locked in a car on the side of the road when I was running for governor. This is how nasty it is out there. But the bottom line is this. He's put himself out there for you. Will you put yourself out there for him? Absolutely. Merry Christmas. And remember that Jesus is the reason for the season. But liberty and freedom starts with your spiritual liberty and freedom first and foremost. And we should never live in a state, we should never live in a country where the very first thing that the government shut down is our church. And he would never allow that to happen. That's why he's the right man for a time such as this. God bless you all. Thank you.